The Big Ten is going to be a really exciting conference, and today we're going to take a look at the win totals for every team to see what we should expect from each team in 2025. We'll start with Illinois. This is a team that expects to be in contention for a college football playoff appearance, and the win total is set at 7.5. There are some challenging games right out the bat. Duke, Indiana, and USC are going to be in the first half of the season, though you do have some easier contests against Western Illinois, Western Michigan, and Purdue. How they perform, I think, against Duke is going to tell us a lot about how successful they can be. Same thing with the Indiana test. I think even if they do get past Duke, Indiana's still going to be tough. The second half of the season is a little bit tougher. You do get Ohio State and Washington to start, but then you do get Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Northwestern. So I think that the over is probably where I lean right now. If it's 7.5, it feels like it's really good value. You just have to find a way to pull off maybe an upset. And if you do beat Duke and Indiana, the over is easily going to hit. Indiana's tough because last year was so exciting, but it's going to be tough for them to repeat that success because the surprise factor is gone. Now, you do get 3 wins right off the bat: Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. The Illinois game that we talked about is going to be a tricky one. You then go at Iowa, at Oregon, Michigan State, and UCLA. Those are, 2 tougher games in that first half of that stretch. Michigan State, if they bounce back, is going to be challenging. And if UCLA and Nico Iamaleava are truly on point, then that's going to be a tough one as well. The end of the season has 3 of the easier games: Maryland, Wisconsin, and Purdue, but you do have to go to Penn State as well. Right now, I think I'd lean the under. If Fernando Mendoza truly is the real deal, then I'll be wrong. But I would probably lean the under right now. The fact that they have Oregon and Penn State worries me a little bit. And then Illinois, Iowa, Michigan State, and UCLA all could be challenging as well. I just don't think, with the lack of the surprise factor, that this team can repeat that success this year. The Iowa Hawkeyes have a win total of 7.5 right now, and it'll be fun to see how this team plays this year. It's going to be a little bit of a different look. The offense is going to look kind of similar to last year, but hopefully it also takes a step. You're going to have to figure out how the rushing attack works without Caleb Johnson. Early in the season, you start with Albany and then you go to Iowa State. That rivalry game will be tough, but it's also a tone setter for the rest of the season. You then get UMass, Rutgers, and then you get Indiana at home before you go to Wisconsin. So the first part of that schedule definitely has winnable games. The second half, though, is where things get a little bit tougher. You host Penn State, Minnesota, and Oregon right in a row before you go to USC, host Michigan State, and to Nebraska. Honestly, I'd probably lean the under right now. Iowa kind of feels like it's in transition. Now, if Mark Gronowski is the real deal in Tim Lester's offense, then the over is going to hit. But right now, I think there are some questions I have. The defense, I think, has some concerns. So I'm going to go leaning the under right now for Iowa. Maryland's win total is set at 4.5. And I don't know what that means for Mike Locksley, but you could honestly get off to a 4-0 start, and then you just have to figure out how to pull out that 5th or even get to 6 wins as well. FAU, Northern Illinois, and Towson should give them a 3-0 start. If Wisconsin truly is going to struggle, there could be a 4-0 start. Now, I will say is you don't have Oregon, you don't have Ohio State. So it's not that any of these games are easy to win, but you don't face, and you also don't face Penn State. And those are the 3 top teams in the conference heading into the season. You do, though, have to host Washington, Nebraska, go to UCLA, and host Indiana. You then get a Rutgers road trip that is a little bit challenging before you also go to Illinois. You host Michigan, and then you have a neutral site game against Michigan State in Detroit. So it's not easy by any means, but I probably would lean the over here. I think Maryland's win total is low enough where there's value in the over. It just depends on what kind of odds and what kind of money you're going to get with that pick. Michigan's win total is set at 8.5, and a lot of this, I think, hinges on Bryce Underwood and what he can do if he truly is going to be the starting quarterback. I think a lot of people can agree that it's a matter of if, not when, he starts, but Mikey Keene is a nice piece to have. Now, the first part of the schedule, you host New Mexico and go to Oklahoma. That Oklahoma game will tell us how far this team has come or how much more work they need to do. That is a tough test to face early in the season, and if it's truly Bryce Underwood, that is going to be really tough. You then get Central Michigan before a road trip to Nebraska, and then you host Wisconsin. So I think you have winnable games right there. Probably a 4-1 start, to be completely honest. The Nebraska game is a little tricky. I think if Nebraska truly takes that Matt Rule step that everyone expects, then this one will be tighter. The rest of the schedule, though, is going to provide definitely a stretch of winnable games, but you go to USC, host Washington, go to Michigan State. I I think that's going to be hard, and especially with a true freshman quarterback, it's going to provide a ton of challenges. You then get 3 winnable games in Purdue, at Northwestern, and at Maryland before you host Ohio State. Honestly, if Bryce Underwood's the real deal, then the over is going to have no problem hitting. Again, Michigan is capable of winning all of these games, but it's hard to navigate the Big Ten, and there's a lot of questions surrounding Sharon Moore. I probably honestly would lean the under. If you have a true freshman quarterback, you expect a lot. That Oklahoma game, though, is going to tell us a lot about this team. Michigan State's win total is set at 5.5, and truly, this kind of hinges on Aiden Childs. If Aiden Childs is a lot better than he was in 2024, this is going to be a team that makes a bowl game for sure. Western Michigan, Boston College, and Youngstown State give you winnable games. The Boston College game obviously is one that we saw what happened last year. But if Michigan State is better, that really shouldn't be too much of a problem. It'll probably still be a close game, but I trust that Michigan State and Jonathan Smith can figure that out. Road trips to USC and Nebraska follow that. I think those are going to be tough, but how you perform will tell us if a bowl game is definitely possible. You host UCLA before going to Indiana, and then you host Michigan before going to Minnesota. So again, the schedule is not giving you a ton of winnable games in that middle stretch. Penn State is next before you go to Iowa, and then you have that neutral site game against Maryland. I feel more confident in this team. It's just, how are you going to find wins, right? So if Nebraska takes a step, they're going to be better than Michigan State. If UCLA is truly better and playing how they did in the second half, then they are probably going to be better than Michigan State. But I trust Jonathan Smith to make this team better. And honestly, when you look at the schedule, you have 4 games that you feel really confident with this team. It's just going to be, how do you find 2 more? And I think that they do find a way to do that as long as Aiden Childs is taking care of the football. Minnesota's win total is at 7.5. That was truly surprising when I first looked at it. But when you look at the schedule, it's kind of easy to see how they could get to 8, 9. I don't know if I want to say 10 wins, but Buffalo, Northwestern State, and Cal should give you an opportunity to start the year 3-0. Getting revenge on Rutgers would also get you off to a 4-0 start. That gets you to the Ohio State game with a ton of confidence. Now, Ohio State is going to win that game, but Minnesota tends to give them a lot of trouble, and it's going to be a matter of how long they hang in that game. But that's going to be a loss. I don't think there are a lot of people in their right mind that are going to give Minnesota the win there. So if you're at 4-1, you're going to probably beat Purdue, which puts you at 5-1. You just need 3 more wins. So hosting Nebraska, at Iowa, and Michigan State give you opportunities to do that. And if Drake Lindsey is truly the quarterback that we expect him to be, they could win all 3 of those games. Then you go to Oregon. That one will be tough. That one is definitely kind of in the Ohio State realm where Oregon should win that game, but it's just a matter of how well you hang in. And at that point, if you're sitting at 7 wins, you're going to find one, or at least one win with Northwestern and Wisconsin. You probably will find 2 if those 2 teams play how we expect them to this year. So Minnesota, I will lean the over. I am confident in what PJ Fleck has done in his career at Minnesota. This is a team that knows how to win, and they just have a few pieces that need to sort themselves out for them to get the over here. Nebraska is a team that if they do take that step, this is going to be a special year. I think Dylan Raiola is going to be a fun player to watch. If he truly does take a step in his development, this could be a fun start. Now, we've seen this before. We've had the excitement surrounding Nebraska. And if you want to get on the hype train for a little bit, the first part of this schedule is open for an incredible run. You do face Cincinnati at a neutral site in Kansas City. Then you go Akron, Houston Christian. That's a 3-0 start, I think, right now as I look at it. Michigan is a beatable team. Michigan State is a beatable team. Maryland is a beatable team. Minnesota is a beatable team. Northwestern is a beatable team. So when you look at that first stretch, you could be looking at an 8-0 start. And I know we've said that before, but let's just look at it from the optimism side of things. that is a team that could definitely start the year 8-0. And then when you get to, honestly, this is a team that could go 11-1 if things are going right. The schedule does give them opportunities to win some of those big games and prove people wrong. Now, I do think they lose to Penn State. It's going to be hard for them to go 11-1, but 9 or 10 wins is definitely possible. And honestly, I have the confidence in Matt Rule. I've seen him do it at multiple stops, and I trust that now that Dana Holgorsen is calling plays, that this offense should look better. I trust that Nebraska should be able to hit that over. While Northwestern's over-under is set at 3.5 wins right now, it's definitely possible to see them hit the over. They just have to be perfect in the games that are winnable. Now, going to Tulane is a tough test, and while I don't like betting against a John Summerall team, that is a game that they can definitely win. You could start the year 2-0 when you face Western Illinois. Then you're going to lose 2 games against Oregon and UCLA. You get another win with ULM, and you're at 3 right away. Now, playing in the Big Ten is going to be tough. And honestly, they're not going to beat, in my opinion, Penn State, Nebraska, USC, Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois. But they do have the Purdue game. If Purdue is better, that's going to be hard. But you're going to be able to hit 4 wins when you face Purdue. You should be able to do that. If you lose the Tulane game, the under is going to hit. If you win that game, you set yourself up to actually hit the over. I would probably lean with the under, though, because you're going on razor thin margins. You need to be perfect in those 4 winnable games. And I just don't see Northwestern being able to pull off an upset in any of those other games. Now we get to the gauntlet of a stretch. Ohio State's win total is set at 10.5, and they have a massive game against Texas to start the year. Now, how they play in that game could give us an idea of how prone they are to upset throughout the rest of the year. Obviously, we know about the Michigan game. That's going to be another one to keep an eye on, and that one probably is a big one when it comes to the over-under. Grambling State and Ohio don't possess any ability to pull off an upset. Washington on the road could be a tricky one. You have 2 big corners that should be able to handle the physicality of Jeremiah Smith. That is going to be a fun matchup to watch if you don't know about that one. Minnesota tends to give Ohio State a little bit of trouble, but that's not a game that I'm worried about Ohio State losing. Road trips to Illinois and Wisconsin. Illinois is a better team, but Ohio, in terms of what they were last year, but Ohio State is the better team in that matchup. I don't have concerns there, and I don't have concerns about them at Wisconsin. Hosting Penn State is another one. The Texas, Penn State, and Michigan games are the ones that provide the biggest challenges for this team. And there's a lot of turnover. This is a team that expects to win 10, 11 ball games. They expect to be in contention for the Big Ten championship. Problem is that there are some games with very talented teams that could make their life a lot more difficult. And when you're hitting the over means you have to win 11 games, it kind of just comes down to value. I'd probably lean the under, to be completely honest, because this feels like a 10-2 team, which is still a really good season. It's still a team that's going to make it to the college football playoff most likely, but it's really hard to bet on that when you're looking for value. You're probably going to get more value with the under. Oregon's win total is also at 10.5, and ushering a new quarterback makes that a little bit challenging. Dante Moore has a lot of pressure, but they do get some time before they actually have to put him in a really tough situation. They get Montana State, Oklahoma State at home before going to Northwestern, and then they do host Oregon State before a big road trip to Penn State. They also have Indiana at home after that. So those are 2 games that will tell us a lot about this team. Even if they do lose at Penn State, I feel confident that they should be able to win a bunch of games until they get to USC and Washington. I just trust that Dan Lanning's doing the right thing. Again, it's same as Ohio State right now. There are some questions, but I think that this schedule is a little bit easier to win 11 games. I'm going to lean the over here. But again, the value's probably with the under. But I do trust that this team knows how to win those football games. And even if you do lose one of them, you're still going to hit the over. Now, Penn State is the 3rd and final team that has a win total of 10.5. And like I said, with Oregon, they do have time to get things up to speed. They do have plenty of returning talent. There are less concerns with that. And there are 2 really big games that you really have to worry about. Oregon and Ohio State are the 2 big ones. And if Penn State is truly ready, they do have the veteran presence on both sides of the ball. They return a number of big time contributors. I trust that this team is going to be a good team. I trust that this team is going to get back to the Big Ten championship. I will lean the over here. I probably wouldn't bet it, but I trust having those veterans with the schedule that you have. 11, I don't know if they can win 12, but it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. Purdue's win total is set at 2.5. And while that seems very tempting, it probably would stay away from that. You're probably going to start the year 2-0 when you face Ball State and Southern Illinois, but finding wins after that might be a little bit of a challenge. How you feel about Northwestern probably dictates your feelings on the over or the under. But other than that, you have USC, Notre Dame, Illinois, Minnesota, Rutgers, Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, Indiana. The schedule does not do you a ton of favors. And that, I think that reason alone is why I'd stay away with it. I'd probably lean the under right now. There's a lot of work to do at Purdue. Yes, they have a new coaching staff, and I think that they'll be able to get this team back on track. But right now, there's so much work to do that I would probably lean the under. But again, I'm probably staying away from this one. Rutgers win total is set at 5.5, and they do have the opportunity to start off really fast. You get Ohio, Miami of Ohio, and Norfolk State that are going to get you a 3-0 start. You then host Iowa. If you're finding a way to upset them, you feel confident about the over for sure. Then you go to Minnesota, a team that you stunned last year. I think it's going to be hard for them to do that 2 years in a row, especially now that this year is on the road. You then go to Washington and host Oregon. Those are 2 losses in my opinion. And then you go to Purdue. So if you're sitting at 4 wins, if you find a way to pull off an upset against Iowa or Minnesota, then you feel pretty good about getting your 5th win. You just have to find a way to pull off an upset against really either Illinois or Maryland. But if you need 2 wins at this point, you're kind of in trouble. You then finish the season at Ohio State and host Penn State. So again, the schedule is daunting. There are some big names in the Big Ten, and Rutgers gets them. Again, it's all about how you get those coin flip games, how you get those games against Iowa, against Minnesota, even Maryland. You're going to feel confident that you could potentially win that one. And how you do in those games dictates if the over hits. I would probably lean the over. I trust that Greg Schiano will be able to get this team to a bowl game. It's just going to be a matter of how they find a way to win some of those close games. UCLA was playing really well towards the end of the season, at least much better than they were in the first half of the season. Now, winning football games is going to be tough right off the bat. You do host Utah and go to UNLV. Those are 2 tough tests that it will dictate how successful this team can actually be. You then get New Mexico and Northwestern. So if you don't have wins, you probably will be able to get 2 right there. But then you host Penn State. That is going to be a tough game for this team, and Nico Iamaleava is going to have a lot on his shoulders when that game comes around. You then go to Michigan State. It'll be fun to see that game because I think those 2 teams have a lot to prove, and that's a game where they can do that. You then host Maryland. That's a winnable game for sure. Then you go at Indiana, host Nebraska, at Iowa State, Washington, at USC. I don't really like UCLA in those games. I don't know if I trust that this team can get the job done. With how I'm feeling about this team, I would lean the under. I think there's a lot of work to do. There are plenty of challenging games. Starting with Utah is a game that could ruin a lot of confidence. Just ask Dante Moore what it's like to be on UCLA and face a Utah defense that is swarming. USC's win total is set at 7.5, and Lincoln Riley is hoping that his team can get off to a fast start and get USC back on the map in terms of the national spotlight. You get Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, and Michigan State right off the bat. That is a 4-game stretch that you should be able to start 4-0. A big road test against Illinois is tough, but USC should be the more talented team. It's going to be tough to beat the Illini at their place, but it's going to be a good test for us to see how tough this team actually is. You then get Michigan, Notre Dame, and Nebraska in a 3-game stretch. Those are 3 tough games as well, but games that USC could potentially win. Now, Notre Dame is probably the least likely of those, but Michigan and Nebraska are teams that this squad can definitely beat. Northwestern and Iowa at home are 2 winnable games as well. You go to Oregon, was a little bit concerning there, and host UCLA. So when you look at this schedule, I think I lean the over right now. I have confidence in what Jane Maeva can do, and this staff clearly has confidence in him as well, as they didn't bring any transfer portal talent at that position. Now, a lot of the pressure goes on his shoulders, but I trust Lincoln Riley's track record, and if USC truly is going to get on track, this is the year to do it. Washington's win total is set at 7.5, and there's a lot of excitement surrounding this team. This could be a sleeper team in the Big Ten. The schedule gets them off to a good start: Colorado State and UC Davis before they go to Washington State for the Apple Cup. I don't like that this game is early in the season, but that is just unfortunately where we're at. They also have to make sure they don't get caught looking ahead to the Ohio State game. That is a massive game early in the season, and it's at home. So if you're 3-0, I feel confident that this team could give Ohio State a run for their money. But if you find a way to stumble against Washington State, that might do some damage to this team's confidence. Damon Williams is going to have a really fun year. You get to see him as a full-time starter, and he needs to be confident heading into that Ohio State game. You then get Maryland and Rutgers, which should get you 2 more wins. You're probably up to 5-1 at that point in the first half of the season. Then you go to Michigan and host Illinois. Those are 2 tougher games for this team, but good tests to see where this team truly stands. Again, I think those are 2 winnable games, but it's going to be tough. So say that you go 1-1, you're all of a sudden at 6 wins, and you get Wisconsin and Purdue next. Those are 2 teams you should be able to beat, and that gives you the over before the last 2 games of the season. Now, if you don't find a way to get that, you do get a chance to get it at UCLA, and then you have the Oregon game. We've seen weirder things happen between Oregon and Washington. We've seen Washington be able to win those games, so maybe they're able to do that. Maybe they're able to win that game. I would lean the over. I trust that Damon Williams is going to be really exciting. I like the talent that they have coming back both on offense and defense, and I think that Washington is a team that will hit the over in 2025. The Wisconsin Badgers are in a tough place, and the over-under is currently somehow set at 5.5. I'm not exactly sure, unless Vegas knows something we don't. Now, the one thing I'll say is that if this roster is actually better than some people are saying, then Luke Fickell should be in good hands. You're going to start the year 2-0, that's for sure. But then you're going to lose to Alabama on the road. That one I do know for sure. You should be able to beat Maryland at home to get your 3rd win, but I'd be very curious to see where people think you're going to find 3 more wins. When you face Michigan at Michigan, you host Iowa and Ohio State, you go to Oregon, host Washington, to Indiana, host Illinois, to Minnesota. I don't know how you can confidently say there are 3 more wins on that schedule. You will sit at 3-1, but it's going to be tough for you to get to 6 wins. You have to get 6 wins to hit the over, and you probably do have to hit 6 wins to get Luke Fickell back in 2026. And the Big Ten provides a ton of challenges for everybody. It's going to be a tough conference to win, and it's going to be tough for teams to find wins on their schedule. Wisconsin is no different, and it'll be fun. There's plenty of competition in this conference. There's plenty of opportunities for upsets to happen as well, and it'll be fun to see how this conference shakes out. And Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State are at the top right now, but there are plenty of teams willing to challenge them in 2025.